I had a brief exchange with a Christian again this morning, and the person gave me the typical response of how only Jesus can give us fulfillment of life, peace, and freedom. I used to talk and think and believe that way myself when I was in my unawakened state of being. And what do I mean by unawakened state of being? It means my soul was asleep. My soul was unconscious. My soul was unawakened. I was unaware to my soul's state of being. I was only aware of that which my ego, the logical, critical mind, well, actually that's not right. The ego is the part that protects our person. It's the persona, the actor in this life, and ego's role is to keep body and mind as safe and protected as possible. Ego is the function that will try to keep pain at a minimum. So to bring me back to my opening thought, ego is the only aware part. It's not what we are aware of, but it's from the aspect we function of unconsciously. And it runs the show. So as a Christian, we are unawakened to our soul. We don't even know the realm of our soul because we are so much in ego, because we are only functioning from the rational, logical part of the mind to a degree. Not even logical, because there's nothing logical about Christianity. It's that defensive part of the mind that runs everything. It's called the conscious mind. It's the 5% that we are conscious of in this life. The rest is action, unconscious action, based on the feeling in the soul or the subconscious mind. And the reason why most of us are not aware or awake to this 95% aspect of our soul is because it is subconscious. It means it's below the level of detection. And so Christians, not just Christians, any human, the human by default functions from this 5% ego awareness. And that includes the experience with the Christian life. Even that falls within the 5% of awareness. It's just another program. It's a very beneficial program to ego, and serves the function of, like I said earlier, to protect the body and the mind, to keep body and mind safe in a protective state that is meant to diminish pain as much as possible. And so the Christian belief, on the one hand, is very effective at diminishing this psychological pain because it has a soul numbing effect, a bypassing effect. We basically, well, you don't ever have to access the soul when you have the Christian belief, because Jesus covers everything. You don't ever have to look at the 95% that are below the water, subsurface, and dig around in your soul, in your sentiments, in your trauma, in your shadows, the things that make you extremely fearful if the light would ever be shown on it. But meanwhile, the ego has us believing that we are safe, that we are free, as long as it can keep this underworld of the soul asleep. And religion works as long as that soul remains asleep. This is very hard for me to try and explain, because it's, for some of these knowings and feelings, I don't have the word to convey it. But the truth is, your ego makes you think that you're free, makes you think you are at peace. And you are, while the shadows remain asleep. It feels peaceful when there is no disturbance coming from the soul. So it's a deception. It's a deception of the ego mind. And that is what we really hope to wake up from. This amnesia that the ego has put our being into. You are not your ego. Ego is just a computer program, if you will, that tries to help regulate the body and the nervous system in the body. The whole Bible story and everything is really a manual for psychological and biological health. But it's written in such allegory, and because people read it with their mind, with their logical mind, they read it literally, and they don't get the allegory, the parables. It says of Jesus that he only spoke in parables. So what was he talking about? He was talking about the psychology of the soul and the mind, ego. And these are archetyped by the language of Satan and God in spirit and flesh. It's the war that goes on within our being. It's not talking about some devil being outside. It's all going on within. It's the enmity between your ego mind and your soul. And yeah, so it's got nothing to do with faith in God or religion or worshiping Jesus. It had nothing to do with worshiping Jesus. That is where Christianity went wrong. If people were following the teaching of Jesus and putting into practice what he taught, then they too could awaken to their Christness. In Ephesians 2:14 it says, "Awake, O sleeper, rise from the dead, and Christ will illuminate you." Yeah. Everyone is sleeping, and in particular the Christian is sleeping the most. It's time to awaken to the reality of body, mind, and soul. That's where the show is playing out in your being and in the dividedness of your being, of body, mind, and soul. The dividedness between ego and soul. I think it's in Ephesians also 5:14 maybe, where it says that Jesus broke down the middle wall of partition in his mind that was dividing soul from ego, and had these two in the duality warring with each other. And it says he dissolved the partition. He broke down the partition that created the hostility or enmity within himself. And then it says he made peace within himself. It's a very important phrase. He didn't make peace for the world outside. He made this peace within himself by unifying ego and soul. And every person has to do this in their individual life. Jesus cannot do this for anyone. He could only do it within himself. And so you have to pick up your cross and do your own inner work and reconcile your ego with your soul. May you awaken from the Christian slumber and find true liberation and peace for your soul.